Hello everyone, welcome back to Byte into Future. Even though it's future, I wanted to mention about the history. This is an iconic place, New York Stock Exchange, obviously. Guess what? It was started in 1972. That was 232 years ago. There is a reason that I mentioned this number. We'll get to that in our conversation. So remember, 232 years ago, and when George Washington was still the president. That's kind of amazing. So I'm so glad I invited my friend Luka to this place to have a conversation. Luka and I are both super founders, thanks to Ali. And then we have this, WhatsApp group, for a few years, and then I always learn a lot from the group. And then, so Luka, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Luka, born and raised in New York City, went to study in Paris, France when I was 18, studied philosophy and minored in computer science. Actually started my first company when I was 19. It was a machine learning company, didn't work out. Went back to school, finished on time luckily. Then there was this craze of tech and startups in Berlin. So at the age of 22 I moved to Berlin, and I noticed everybody's looking at the time there was a big rise in basically D2C business banking, or D2C banking better said, but nobody was looking at the business banking segment. And so a buddy and I started what became one of Europe's largest online banks for small businesses. So
essentially it's like SVB in Europe.
An right? SVB in Europe, exactly. So
Silicon Valley, of course, SVB didn't get a perfect reputation in the last couple of years. But, we also have to say SVB was so fundamental to technology world, to a lot of the startups. So
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of your clients are tech startups?
So a lot of the clients, we had 60,000 small businesses that banked with us, several billion deposits. We were opening up 5% of all German accounts at that period.
So it's not just for Germany though, right? It's for entire Europe.
Yeah, we ended up, so what happened is in 2022, we got acquired by one of our biggest competitors in France, Conto. In the meantime, we launched the Italian market. We were looking to launch into other markets, but our core market was Germany.
I see. So that bank became, one of the largest online bank in Europe. This is after the acquisition, or?
So during the acquisition, it was the largest in Germany at that time. And it was actually one of the largest definitely in Europe. And with the acquisition, we actually became the largest.
Yeah,
the largest.
And that bank's name is?
Conto with a Q.
Okay, cool. So, that's a lot of accomplishment, right? This is, by the time you sold your company, you were only what, 20?
I was 27, yeah.
27, right? Yeah. And then you already did the largest online bank in Germany, right? One of the largest in the entire Europe.
Yeah.
And when did you leave the company?
So I left the company roughly 9 months after our Series B. And it was a $28 million Series B. It was right at the height of COVID. Things were going quite well. And I decided at this point, my value is probably worth going into other endeavors, basically, and ventures. And I always had my mom was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease while I was building the company.
I see.
And
your mom is in New York?
Yeah, she was in New York at the time, yeah. And
so you sort of moved yourself back partially for family reason, right?
Yeah, I mean, a family reason. So she got better, and then, but I was inspired by her story where she was diagnosed with that autoimmune disease, went down the traditional medicine route of getting more and more medication, and her health just got worse. And at one point she found a doctor who specialized in personalized medicine, and they took these advanced lab tests, diagnosed the root cause of why did this disease suddenly pop up at the age of 60. And then they created a hyper-personalized plan based on her genetics and how her body works. And after about a year, they actually reversed what she had. And so it got me thinking, why don't we do this for cancer, diabetes, child autism, Alzheimer's? Why isn't this?
Oh, for everyone,
for
every
everything,
disease.
yeah.
So why we don't have personalized treatments?
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of one size fits all, right?
Exactly.
And what's the reason?
I think, so that's actually a really good question. I think that the way medicine today is designed, it's a 15-minute appointment that typically ends in a prescription medication. That's what, that's just kind of how it's designed. I think there's not enough data being used, or there is just actually not enough data to be able to diagnose better and also to personalize treatments.
So by personalized treatment, you not only meant the personalized conversation with the doctor, but also the actual medicine would be personalized.
Yeah, so everything from precision pharma to sometimes it's a question of finding the right medication. Sometimes the medication is completely off. Sometimes it's as easy as change your diet. But most of the time, it's something in between changing your diet and finding the right medication.
but let me just try to understand this right medication. Like people need to manufacture differently, or it's the same medicine. It's just to pick different different pieces out there.
It's picking. So it's finding it. So there are, for example, let's say for diabetes, there's a ton of different drugs,
right?
And they may work differently for how you are genetically, what the condition is, how severe it is. So it's us finding like this is the correct treatment for this individual.
Meaning that what medicine to use, how often, when to use it. You are saying that John's treatment will be different from Joe's, right? But today, you go to see a family doctor, you get a prescription, you more or less get the same medicine, same way, but you are foreseeing that for diabetes, it would be very different between John and Joe, as an example.
It could also be the same, frankly. It heavily depends on who the individual, like when you have, let's say, a 45-year-old woman going through menopause and you have a 22-year-old girl, typically they'll be given the same dose of, let's say, some sort of medication for hormones or whatever it may be. But, those two women are completely different, in stages of their lives, and it's probably inappropriate to prescribe the same thing, right?
So essentially, it's not like manufacture or design new drugs or new things for John or Joe. It's the same thing over there, but figuring out the pattern, the pace, the dose, right? When and then how often. That's personalized.
Yes. So I think there's a couple of stages to personalize. So our goal ultimately is like, how do you help people live until 150 years old, right? And so I think there's a couple of stages to that. I think the first stage is how do you fix lifestyle alone, right? Like what you eat is huge, right? On the other hand is like finding the right medication. Also then there's also the diagnostics, like how do you actually diagnose the root cause of what's wrong? I think that's the first stage that I can dramatically increase the current longevity.
Even the personal behavior, habit, that
Absolutely,
alone could change it.
I think it's a component of everything from supplements to medication to all the way to personal, to lifestyle, basically. I think the second step after that is precision pharma. How do you design a drug that's very targeted at this genetic makeup of an individual, right?
So there will still be custom drugs, but that's the second stage, more advanced stage. Right now, you're focusing on the initial stage.
Yeah.
Just, maybe commodity drugs, but, use it differently. Right?
Sure, it's used differently, yeah, absolutely.
But the next phase would be, personalized drugs, potentially.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there's a lot of, somebody actually in the Super Founders group is actually working on exactly that. I just think we're maybe 5-10 years away from that.
Okay, got it.
I think there's a huge need for that. That's actually something that I want us to get into as well.
Got it. So, at a young age, you were already doing one of the largest online banks in Europe. You moved back to US, and then, inspired by your own family members' health situation, and then your observation, your insights that, hey, why do we have this treatment one size fits all? It doesn't make sense. We need to have the more personalized thing. That makes total sense to me. So share with me a little bit, right? You were born and raised here, and then you said that this is the first time you are in NYSE. That's great, welcome. But you went to Europe, and then you came back to to New York. What is as an entrepreneur, what's the big difference?
I think it's like playing like in the major leagues in America, and then it's playing in the minor leagues in Europe, frankly said. So I just think the quality of the people in America is much higher.
More intensive?
Yeah, there's definitely a level of intensity. Europeans are much more laid back, right? I think the social incentives and the structures that are made are inherent in cultures when you compare the US versus Europe.
So that difference, does that mean there are more opportunities for entrepreneurs, or there are relatively less opportunity? Because what is your thinking?
I think there's so Europe is 28 states. I actually look at it very similar to what the US is, but it's also 28 different languages, cultures,
28 different languages, different
Yeah,
culture.
while America's one big market with
Got
one
it.
language and one culture, and also the richest people in the world. So I think if I was going to build, a third, fifth, 100th company, I would again do it in America, or start at least in America.
So there are far more opportunities from that point of view.
But also from a talent perspective, I think the talent is much better here. The best people from Europe come to America.
Right.
So.
And then the other thing, you didn't quite say it just now, but you said it earlier, was in Europe people wear suits, and then here, people wear jackets.
It's true. It's a big difference. Yeah,
so
all
maybe
my
I
suits are
should
in
go
Europe.
to Europe to do this talk, to host this Byte into Future. But anyway, kidding aside, so you have been back for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about where the company is so far, what are the interesting challenges you are running into, tell us more about it.
So I think the biggest challenge is collecting enough data on individuals. So at the moment, I saw actually a tweet by Naval, and he said, why don't we take all existing data on medicine and then use some sort of GPT to sum it up and, create better diagnostics, treatments, etc.
Google just released some model
Yeah.
last week. It sounds like they're able to do something along this line. Or?
I think while the technology is there, I don't think the data is there.
Oh,
I think
it's not the model, it's the
yeah,
data.
I think exactly, and I think it's a question of it really depends on what data you're collecting.
So in order for you to move, let's say 10 times faster, you feel like the friction point is actually on the data side.
The more data that we can consume and basically categorize and understand and compare between individuals, the bigger the advantage that a population has that sees us.
So let me play devil's advocate for a second, right? Even if you have a lot of data, let's just say, right? Do you think you have enough, good enough model to consume it today? I'm just curious, what's your view on?
Frankly speaking, I don't think so. I think we're good at doing this on an individual level. So what we do now is extremely effective as if we had 10,000 data points, per 10,000 patients with data points. However, the difference is that you can do this on an individual level, you can't do it on a mass level. So it still works on an individual, but the question is, how do you then scale that? You see what I mean?
Meaning that the model could work very well for one person, but not,
Exactly. The model works perfectly for one person. It's not going to work for 100. It's even going to work for 50.
So essentially, it's an overfitting problem.
Yeah, it's an overfitting problem. Yeah.
So that's more likely to happen. So you need a better model so that you less likely to run into this overfitting problem.
Yeah. So we have current models that help us understand why. Let's take diabetes for example. There's it's basically a decision tree how it would essentially work as as a rough example. That works on 20, 50, maybe 100 patients. The question is, how do you then scale that to 10,000 in terms of accuracy?
What models are you using? Transformer or what is the model?
So we've built internal at the moment. What we're doing is, like I said, on the individual level, what we're building is based on how the doctor sees it and then how we can output that data, right?
But what kind of model is that? Deep learning, BERT, what is
We're literally at the process of collecting data at the moment. We're actually not using any of that data to actually diagnose or treat.
So you're collecting the data. Do you have rules, so that you have initial recommendation or not?
So we do have initial recommendation.
Based on the data?
So we have a recommendation engine, but it's not sophisticated to the point where we can start to scale it and say 10,000, 15,000 people can use it.
Right.
You see what I mean?
So my friend David was earlier, he said, I'm building, a data company first, and then the AI company, and then a SaaS company. You are basically building that data company now.
Yeah,
right?
we're data lakes, storage, use try to understand it, but don't use it, and then understand with more and more. Yeah.
Right. So you are not doing the AI company yet.
No, we're not. No.
But with the data company, you can already, based on the data, you can already put in some rules so that you can make some recommendations, some personalized treatment plan already.
100%, but we do this on a recommendation for the doctor.
Okay.
So it would be more on a sense of how would this work for one person. So what we're doing, similar to what you just said, but we're creating a service which we can then automate, integrate into a product. You see what I mean?
So basically, it's a tool for the doctor, and the doctor sees your recommendation as a draft, and then the doctor can make some tweaks.
At the moment, it's the doctor making the recommendation and putting it in. And then the data is then slowly learning from that.
Oh, so you are learning from
We're
the doctors.
learning from the
you're
doctors.
At that stage.
Yeah, we're at that
so
stage.
Right now, what's your value to the doctor, or not yet?
What I don't understand.
To the like whatever the system, like you collect all the data, right? Do you have any value today?
From the data, no.
Okay.
However, the question more is that's what I was saying earlier. Our biggest challenge at the moment is how do we get 10,000 patients worth of data, because 10,000 patients equals 1 million data points. You see what I mean?
I see. So basically, you haven't got to that critical mass yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
that you can say, hey, because of this critical mass, I can derive some rules,
Yeah.
I can derive some model out of it, so that there's something for a doctor to try out. You are not there yet.
Yeah. So what we see is, as a service, it's very effective. So from our diagnostics data, we see that we're better at diagnosing and treating individuals. So the efficacy of the data we're collecting and gathering is actually much more effective than traditional medicine. The question more is then, how do you actually create that into something scalable?
Yeah.
Right.
So basically, you haven't got to a stage that, hey, Mr. Doctor, with all the data I have some amazing, findings or recommendation. So this is a thesis at this point. Why you have a conviction on the thesis? Like, just because you have collected 10,000 patients' data.
Yeah.
It may or may not give you the insights, right? I'm just
Sure.
trying to play devil's advocate. Why do you have the conviction that, hey, give me 10,000 patient data, I'm going to make this work? Where's the conviction from?
Because it already works today, and that's the main thing.
So tell me more about it.
Yeah. So when you compare, let's say, two people who have diabetes, both 45, right? They met each other. They don't know anything about each other. From a diagnostics perspective, so how do you actually diagnose? There's thousands of tests available. What is a test that's going to help us understand how to diagnose them? And then based on the results, what are the results that are going to help us treat this person in the most effective way?
Right.
We're able to do that today. So we have the capabilities of better diagnosing and treating. The question more is, so as we're putting that data in, we're going to slowly start to learn from that data, which essentially the goal of that product is to give it to a doctor who isn't focused in precision or in personalized medicine and is able to do personalized or precision medicine.
Interesting. So basically, any doctors are kind of doing that today?
No, it doesn't exist. Okay. So they do it on an individual level. The difference is that we're collecting data, and it's currently the data is basically used on it's like a manual approach. If these two people both have, let's say, early stage Alzheimer's, which we don't do, but there is a doctor which actually focuses on it. Yeah. And then how do you actually both diagnose, and then what are the most effective treatments based on the previous patients that came? You don't necessarily need technology today for that, but if you're going to serve 10,000 patients, you need technology.
Agreed. So that's very interesting. So another question I have is, like I said, 1792 was, New York Stock Exchange was established. That was 232 years ago. So imagine, someone was born there. In order to see us, this live interview, it would, the person need to live 232 years old. My question to you is, why 150? Like, why not be more ambitious? And then what stop you from making a bigger claim?
So I think that our generation can actually live forever. I'm looking at this more in terms of milestones. So if you look back, let's go back to the 1800s, for example, the 1700s, the average life expectancy was 45 years old. And so we've done a good job at actually doubling the life expectancy, right? And so my goal is, like, how are we able to double that again, right? And then how do we double it again? So I look at it more like in terms of like a milestone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So you do have the ambition, you do have the aspiration to see it going beyond 150 years.
Yeah, so like I was mentioning earlier, I think there's 3 phases. The first phase is lifestyle and personalized medicine based on what we have today.
You think that would take us beyond just today's?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Second stage is more the biopharma, or the
precision medicine.
Precision medicine, or the genomic pharma-based drugs.
And potentially would take some custom drugs for me, for John, for Joe.
I mean, and that's here yet. It's just not approved, so it's just hard to get it. The third stage, I think it's nanotechnology. I think it's a lot of genomics used based on a lot of those things. So.
Sorry, the custom drugs is the third or second stage?
That's the second stage.
Second stage. And the third stage is nano. What does that mean?
Like nanobots. Basically, you have bots coming into you and basically fixing and repairing tissue.
Oh, literally nanobots in my body.
Quite literally, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we're maybe 20, 30 years away from that.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I think we, hopefully we live to that, so
Yeah.
that 150 years. That's your mission is not just give people the biggest online bank these days. You actually allow people to live longer.
I think it's the most important thing you can do for humanity. Like going to Mars, I think is important. But what's the point if you're gonna die at 75?
Okay, so this is so inspiring because I'm a fan of Elon Musk, but you are basically telling me that Elon's aspiration is a little bit underwhelming.
I think it's great. I think it's one of the
No, I'm
most
just
important
kidding.
things we can do. But I think that what's really the point if we're dying at the age of 75? I think that's like one of the biggest failures you can actually create. Given that again data we have and the treatment possibilities and everything, like why aren't we living until 150?
Well,
Why aren't
this
we
is
living till
very
200?
eye-opening.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about AI,
Let's
right?
do it.
We talked enough about the data company, right? What's your view on AI? You haven't done enough AI, like you said,
Sure.
right? You are not at that stage. But what is your thought on AI?
I look at it also in phases. I think what some of the biggest levers that we can actually gain from AI is operational efficiency. How do you help people do better work?
Give me more.
So if we take the doctor example, while I see kind of an end goal of software diagnosing, treating, and helping with a lot of those things, I think if you can help the doctor reduce their research time from let's say 1 hour to 10 minutes to say this is exactly what you should do,
Yep.
You've already had a massive gain. If you can, in healthcare alone, if you can help speed up like insurance processing claims and like back office processes, you can, more of that money can be invested into research.
So you're not building those technologies, but you are looking forward to see those technology mature so that you can leverage it, right?
Yeah, so that's actually the first phase of our building. Our first phase is like, how do we build, that's kind of how we look at AI.
So basically when you collect the data, you actually have to use some AI to collect the data more efficiently?
No, not necessarily. It's more of what you have to use AI for is comparing. So how does this patient compare to that patient?
Got it.
Right, in terms of like a comparison model and what are basically the overlaps.
So you're already doing that today?
We're doing that, but in a very manual way, where it's the doctor putting it in and saying how is that working.
But from your point of view, this is something that you would love to use some model to automate that thing, comparison.
We just don't have enough data. Yeah, I think in about 2 or 3 years from today, we'll have enough data to be able to make a recommendation engine for doctors. And I think that's the first stage. So I think operational efficiency is where we can gain a ton of, I think that's the first stage of AI, in general, yeah.
So it's internal efficiency.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not necessarily show up from the product point of view, but at least
internal efficiency. Yeah. I think it's a huge aid to people who are already doing their jobs.
Right. What is I don't know if you can share,
Sure.
a great example that you are using AI or other people's solution or whatnot, and then that thing, efficiency improved dramatically. You were wowed by the efficiency gain so far.
So that's actually an interesting question. So we use AI to help us process insurance claims. So some claims we know will be denied, some claims we know will be approved. And that, that basically algorithm helps us determine like what we need to fix beforehand. Is that the most sophisticated thing? No. Does it save us thousands of dollars per year? Yes.
It does save you thousands of dollars because otherwise you have to have people.
Yeah.
How many people you have today?
We have 30.
30, and then if you didn't have the AI technology to do that, you would need 40 people to
We
do
would, exactly. We need maybe, probably 2-3 more people at least to do
Two,
that.
3 more people at least.
Yeah.
But that's just for that one task.
That's just that one task.
And then there are a few other tasks. Right?
Yeah.
So you are a beneficiary of AI technology already.
Definitely.
Even though you haven't applied AI in your product just yet.
Yeah, so Microsoft recently came out with their AI model. I'm forgetting the name now. The dual AI bot, which two bots talk to each other.
Oh, okay. Agent.
Agent, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's actually helping us a lot with developing like our B2B sales pipeline.
So you're already using Microsoft agents
Yeah.
in your day-to-day thing.
Basically similar. It's very basic things. It's basically like how do we find better leads through for B2B, or how do we basically it's like how do we find out and then reach out to these people and then answer the questions and then put them in the pipeline so that somebody like myself can actually talk to them.
Interesting. When you say find the leads, like finding patients in your case, or?
So this is for B2B. This is like selling to an employer. Like let's say the New York Stock Exchange has 10,000 employees, like rough example. We would then be like a healthcare benefit for the employees.
Cool.
Yeah.
So very interesting. So far, we have talked about your experience in Europe, and then also your why, and then what you are doing with Index Health, right? Allowing people to live 150 years, and that's just milestone number one, right? Anything you wanted to share, because you are a repeat entrepreneur, right? This is the second time you are doing that. We discussed the difference between Europe and then US, right? But just, for so many entrepreneurs out there, share with us one or two lessons you feel like, I learned in the hard way, as a repeat entrepreneur, as someone, who has some experience, this is something people need to know.
So
the younger yourself will need to know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big reader of like biographies. Like I know met a ton of smart people. I think I don't think I'm necessarily the smartest person in the room. I think the big difference between somebody who's an entrepreneur and builds a great company or even fails while doing it, it's that they take initiative. Some of my friends are much smarter than I am, but they don't have 1% of the drive that I do. So, and reading Elon Musk biography, reading I think Elon Musk is brilliant. I don't necessarily think he's maybe the smartest. I think the difference is that he probably has the biggest drive that's ever existed. And so my recommendation would be, if you actually want to start a company, just do it.
Wow, this is a good tagline for our this episode, right? Elon Musk may not be the smartest, but in terms of the drive,
he's brilliant.
He's brilliant.
Yeah,
no question.
I'm sure there's smarter people.
More brilliant than me, but he's not the most brilliant people on the planet.
I'm sure there's smarter people than him, but you've never heard of them.
Yep.
And that's kind of the difference. That he's actually just got up and he's just done it.
Yeah, and then no fear, right? Just do it.
Yeah.
First principle.
What's the worst that can happen?
Right. So basically your words for the entrepreneurs is just do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
The rest
you live once.
The rest is you live once, and then you live 150 years.
Yeah.
and
then
the
200.
The rest is minor details.
Exactly.
Anything else?
No. Thanks a lot for having me.
Cool. Thank you for watching Byte into Future. Our program is really about bringing the insights from the entrepreneurs, from the amazing entrepreneurs like Luka, right? Serial entrepreneur. He has done startups in Europe, in New York, in finance, fintech, now in the healthcare. I'm so glad you are able to come, and I hope that people watching the show learned a lot. Again, the tagline for this episode is really about, just do it, right? Like Elon Musk, he may not be, he's a super brilliant person, but the more impressive part is the drive, and the second part is, he's still the inspiration can be higher, like what Luka is going to deliver to us. I'm very much looking forward to talking to each of you when I'm 150 years old. Thank you for watching.